Thank you very much, President Kerry. It's important that the club knows on an annual basis what the Ilott Trust has done. It's one of those parts of Rotary, particularly the Rotary Club of Wellington, that's below the line in some ways, but it does a very significant role out in the community. If you see there from the slide, it's showing you that established in 1960 by Sir John Ilott, was then administered by his son John through the club here, and then started with a funding of 500,000, progressively grew, etc., with further capital grants from Ilott and the family members. And then in 1992, Jack determined that the Rotary Club of Wellington was the best to administer the trust for the future. And so that was done by his establishing a trust for this purpose, which I'll cover. A further legacy of $1 million was left on his death, and the trust fund now stands at an amount of $3.3 million. The guidelines which he established for the administration provided for the president to be the chair of the trust, with the immediate past president and the incoming president to be the 3 trustees for the trust. But that's handled through an advisory committee of 5 persons who do the day-to-day analysis of the applications and handing out the process and advising the trustees. These are who the person should receive the funding for that time. And those 5 trustees are Sue Patterson, Peter Halstead, Gray Hewson, Keith Newell and myself. And we're there for a certain term. We're not there for life or anything like that. There is a time process for it, so you won't hear from me all the time, I can assure you of that. And we receive financial advice from Dennis Kirkordi as the treasurer for it, and specifically through the fund's manager, who are Craig's Investment, and they provide very sound advice on the investment of it to allow us to make these allocations once a year. The trust has a general policy, I'm sorry that's a bit small in print for those in the back of the room, which when Jack set it up, he made it quite specific that grants from the trust were to go in very specific areas. It was not to be just a general handout, as it were. It had to be covering, and he labelled them there 8 specific areas, which in today's age is very interesting to think that he determined in the late 1990s such a preponderance of grants towards women and families and young persons who needed help in the community. And I think that was a bold move of his to make that decision at that stage and not to go down the necessary charitable path that many would have thought might have been the case. So you'll see there is to help newly formed groups, to give them some seed money associated with literacy and reading, advancing sexual education, assisting parents, assisting children, problems of babies at that, assisting women, including those re-entering the working force, and the final one, which is only rarely granted, advanced training for individuals already world challenged in their particular skill, which often is within the arts. In addition, in the trust, it sets out that there are 5 designated organisations which the Ilott family were very involved with in getting established in the Wellington community, and on a rotational basis they receive a specific one-off grant. And you'll see those listed there, which are the National Gallery, which was the original Ilott family involvement with that. Of course, that's now part of Te Papa, within Te Papa, but very much the art side of Te Papa, not the general side of it. Hearing Association, Crippled Children, Marriage Guidance, now Relationship Services. They were due for the special grant this year, but of course Relationship Services is now, could I say, in disarray, uncertain where it's going for the future, and so they dropped off on this occasion because they are no longer could be considered a viable organisation. The Heart Foundation and the Rotary Foundation itself. So generally the grants are in the range of 1,000 to 2,000. Again, it was made specific that they should not be large grants, they should be help money to help an organisation to get off the ground, to do some particular work in those 8 categories. And so generally it does not go above 2,000, the individual grants. And for this last year, 2015, there are 166 applications were received, 99 were successful, and the total amount granted was $167,000. Realising that of those 166 applications they come in, some of them are 2-3 pages, some of them could be 10 or 12 pages. And everyone on that advisory committee, the 5 of us, we read all of those individually, and they get circulated around and everybody reads them, and then we come together at the finish and determine are we going to grant them or not. If they've put up a good story, a good case, put the details that's required, then a grant is made. A majority of those applications come within category 6, and which is the one to assist with the problems of babies and preschool children, and then the other ones are more with to assist parents and to assist women, including those re-entering the workforce. The distribution is made across New Zealand, it's not just within the Wellington region. And as an example, some of the grants that were made this year, to just give you an idea of how widely spread they can be, there was one for the Battered Women's Trust of Christchurch, there was 2 to Birthright and their various organisations around the country, the Kapiti Women's Health Collective, Literacy Aotearoa of Pororua, Otamatea County Community Service, and that's a group north of Auckland in that area, and the Richard Waimea Toy Library. There's a whole range of them, and when you look at these 166 applications, you suddenly realise a huge amount of work is being done out in the community by small groups, small lots of individuals, helping people get on the road, as it were, do particular work, and there's a lot of good social work going on which you have no idea of because you only ever hear about the large organisations. Grant applications come in every year, only between October and the end of November. That's the 10th of November. It's set down that they will be received at that time. They can't make applications during the year. So it's a intense 2 to 3 months at the end of the year to do the allocation. But I think all on the advisory committee would agree with me. It's a very rewarding process to look and see what these organisations are doing, how you can help them. And I'm sure when Jack Ilott set up this trust, he was encouraged to know that it would be ongoing, that the Rotary Club of Wellington is doing the administration of it and doing it, I think and hope, in a very successful way. So that's the report telling you of last year. We now report to Jack's niece, who lives in England, as the immediate relative on the outcome, as it were. They're very satisfied, and that the process follows through, and the chairman, as the president at the time, is the chair of the trust, and those trustees move over, of course, in that cyclical process, so it works very successfully. Thank you.